Hey everyone, welcome back to Design, Create, Inspire. Thank you for joining me today. I have been wanting to make this video for a very long time, and I think the reason why I haven't done it yet is because I didn't really want to look at the numbers myself. I didn't really want to come to the reality of what it actually looks like to become an architect. And then B, I feel like I haven't wanted to say anything because I don't want to freak people out. So today I am talking about how much it really costs to become a licensed architect. You probably read that in the title. And again, I want to do my best not to freak you out. My whole goal is to inspire and to get as many people licensed as possible. And so it's almost counterintuitive to then freak you out by showing you high numbers that then you're like, oh, well, I can't do it. And what's the point? So I am going to go into a little bit of my story first, because I feel like having a little story time will help soften the blow a little bit and also put some things into perspective. And then I'm also going to then give you the real deal breakdown. I remember the first time I thought about this was when I was sending my another check into the California Architects Board in order to finally obtain my license. So I had already passed the exam, I'd already done that. And essentially, in order to get your license, you still have to then send a check, and then they send you your license. Or they tell you your license number. And I remember at that point, I'm like, holy geez, like how many checks have I written so far? It's not like it's one lump sum, but it's a lot. And so I had that idea of wanting to put this together so other people could have a rough idea of what it does look like. But again, so it's been like 2 years and I just haven't even wanted to come to reality with it. So if this is your first time with me, hi, I'm Bryn Young. I'm a licensed architect here in San Diego. I run a design firm called Be Young Design. I also am a mentor. I work with people going through their exam process. I have group coaching. Really, my goal is just to help more people get licensed, be inspired to, pass your goals and hit your achievements, and know that it is possible to be a young architect, a young firm owner, a mother, a woman, all of that. So that is what I am here to do. And if you know me, then you've heard my spiel before. I am going to put a little timestamp in this so you can just fast forward to the nitty gritty. And you can bypass my little story time, but I do want to say it might be a rude awakening. And if you want to soften the blow a little bit and, not have sticker shock and not want to just give up and quit, then you can hear a little bit of my story. So I'm going to bring it back. In high school, I was not your typical straight A person. Actually, I wasn't a straight A person at all. In my house, when I grew up, it was a bit of a chaotic environment. And I was the youngest of, I'm one of 5 siblings, but my youngest sister is like 11 years younger than me. So for a lot of my life, I was the youngest of 4 siblings. So there was a lot of chaos going on all the time. I got really good at kind of like sliding under the radar and just doing enough to get by, but without really causing a scene. And one of those things was with school. I was not a big school person. In my home, B's were wonderful. B's were more than passing. B's were awesome. C's were passing too. They weren't, necessarily praised, but they also weren't punished. So If I got a C here and there, that's fine. I'd usually try to offset that C with like maybe an easy A just to have that balance out to a B. That was always my like rationale. I'm like, okay, well, I'll get a C in this hard class and then I'll get an A in this easy class. That'll balance out to a B, give me my 3.0. So that was like, how can I hack the system and do the bare minimum possible in order to just not cause a scene and just to graduate? So with that, when it came to starting to decide where to go to colleges, I went to a really good high school in La Jolla. It's a public school, but it's still one of the top high schools. So I remember my senior year talking to people and being like, oh, where are you going to college? And they're like, oh, I'm going to Stanford. Oh, I'm going to Harvard. Oh, I'm going to become a neurologist and, at Harvard Medical School. It's like, oh, cool. Everyone was going to USC, NYU. That was just like the baseline. Now, because of my like hacking the system and trying to do the bare minimum possible, I also wanted to do the bare minimum possible to get to college. I didn't want to have to write an essay. So I didn't want to go to a UC school. And I'm telling you all this just to say like, not everyone who becomes licensed architects are like the top, like straight A people. Like you can do it too. But there's also more to say about this. I mean, there's a reason I'm telling you all this details that I probably wouldn't normally share online, but just telling you how it really is. So I was also in charge of paying for 2/3 of my college. So my parents were going to pay for 1/3 of it, and then I was in charge of the rest. And because of that as well, I didn't want to go to a really expensive school because I had no money. So I wanted to go to school. I know I wanted to do some sort of design, but I wanted to go to a state school. I wanted to go to something easy, something that wasn't too hard to get into, all those things. So I just need to stop real quick because I say all this, but I have a fairly decent intelligence. And so I did do the baseline amount of things, but I still, graduated with like a 3.2, which isn't a 4.2 like some people in my school, but it's something. And it allowed me to go to, a college that I wanted to. So I went to Chico State. Chico State was my number one choice. I was really excited about it. It's a great school. I am forever grateful that I ended up doing that because the design program there was incredible and it actually inspired me to pursue architecture. So my whole plan was to go get my 4-year degree and be done. So many people I talked to were talking about going to graduate school afterwards. That's the last thing I wanted to do. There's no way in hell I was going to go do extra school that I didn't need to do. So these were always my plans. If you were to tell me back then that one day I was going to be a licensed architect, but in order to do that, it was going to essentially be a 10-year process of back-to-back school, work, experience, exams, a grueling exam process, and then a lot of money, I would have said, hell no, that's not the path for me. I definitely am not interested in that. And I would have gone a different direction. So I am telling you that entire story to let you know that sometimes going in blind can be helpful. And sometimes knowing a little bit too much beforehand is, kind of will make you end up not wanting to pursue your goals. So you have to take all of this information of what it actually does look like to become a licensed architect, and determine how that works for you and how to navigate that. So I came out of my undergrad. I did a four-year undergrad. Oh, and with that said, so my parents would pay for 1/3 of 4 years, and then that's it. So anything past 4 years, any graduate school, anything like that was out of my pocket. So I finished the 4 years and I came out with, I think, like $18,000 in debt, something like that. And I worked the entire time while I was in school. I've talked about this before, and I'll have like a whole nother video all on this, but I think there's a lot of really amazing value in working while you're in school. So I don't regret any of it. I think was a perfect experience. It was kind of a bummer coming out with some debt, but at the same time, it was student loan debt, which I was always told is the good kind of debt, which now looking back, I'm like, what does that even mean? So then I realized I definitely wanted to pursue architecture. And now I knew that I had to go on to get my master's because I only had an undergrad in interior design. So now I was looking at a master's program. And when I was looking up my degrees, okay, mind you, this was like 2013 this is almost 10 years ago. So, costs have changed a little bit. But my graduate program that I was looking at was $10,000 a quarter, which seemed nuts to me. And I had to take the 3-year program because technically my undergrad was interior design. It wasn't in architecture. And so I had to take the 3-year program. So I was looking at 10 units. I'm sorry, 10, not units, 10 quarters at $10,000. So easy math, it was $100,000 for my graduate school. Now, me being like, how can I hack this system? I'm going to do whatever I can. I ended up finishing in, it was 8 because I came in a quarter late. I'm sorry, it was 9 because I came in a quarter late. But I was able to use courses from my undergrad, like all my art histories and stuff, in order to make up for the classes that I missed. And then I was able to essentially graduate with just 1 quarter less. And to me, that was a big deal because that was $10,000 out of my pocket. There was other people in my program who received full scholarships, so not a penny out of pocket, which is just mind-blowing to me. And then there was other people who had, full rides from family and whatnot. So I received 0 help. So it was all about working while I was in school. And then it was all about the scholarships and the student loans. Now, student loans are still biting me in the ass because I have so much student loans. I didn't even realize I got it. I understood loans. I have a decent finance background in terms of understanding what that looks like. But when I graduated my when I graduated my master's, I think I had about $82,000 in debt. And then because of interest, which again, I always thought that the student loan debt was the good one because the interest was so low. My interest rates are still like 6.8 or something nuts. And so I was paying as much as I could as a new graduate of my master's. I was paying what I could, and each year or each month it was just going up. So not until the pandemic it's actually been able to go down because I'm still paying it even though there's no interest. So I've finally been able to actually get it under. But when the pandemic hit, I think I had like $90,000 in debt. So not fun and not ideal, but I still say to this day, totally worth it. Because if I hadn't first been so ignorant to understand what the process was going to be like, and if I hadn't just taken on the debt and, been like, okay, whatever, let's do it, then I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be a licensed architect. I would still be wondering if I should do it. And honestly, I would probably maybe just be starting because I would have always had that underlying desire and want to be a licensed architect or be an architect. And so I know that it was where I needed to be and what I needed to do. And I kind of had to go in with my blinders on and just say, I'm just going to do it no matter what it's going to take. So that is, 10, 15 minutes of kind of probably way too much information that you need to know. But, I feel like there is a story behind why we do what we do and the reason we do it. And, even in college, the classes that I didn't care about, or, the topics I didn't care about, I was totally fine getting C's, maybe B's, because it was passing. And I wasn't looking to be an astronomer or a nutritionist, So if I could just pass those classes, then great. But the classes I cared about, the topics that I cared about, I did really well in. I'd get A's in. And there's a lot to be said about where you put your energy in things like school, things like the exams, and all that stuff, so that you don't burn yourself out, so that it is manageable. So I was able to work other jobs because I wasn't trying to be a perfectionist with every class I was taking. So that's a whole nother, I think I talk about that when I'm talking about is architecture school right for you? So you can go check out that video. But let's get into it. Okay. For those who skipped my story time and are joining me now, let's get into the details of what it actually costs to become a licensed architect. So this is based on numbers right now. This is May 2022. So this obviously will fluctuate based on inflation and all that good stuff. And I want to say that there's different routes you can go with this. And so it's not like a very cut and dry, black and white type situation. So you can go straight from high school, if you know that you want to be an architect, into an architecture program. An undergraduate program is 5 years. So that's different than your regular bachelor's, that's 4 years. If you do a regular bachelor's that's unrelated to architecture for 4 years, then you go on to your graduate program, which will be 3 years. So 4 years regular, 3 years of architecture. Or you can start with 5 years of architecture, and then you can go get a master's for 2 years. So either way, ends up being 8 years. But so you don't have to get a master's if you have that 5-year undergrad program, but a lot of people do. So when we did this research, the numbers we came out with on average for a Bachelor of Architecture degree, and this is in the US, the average tuition for 5-year program is $161,600. So that's obviously the 5 years, it's like $32,000 or something a year. And then if you get your master's of architecture degree, which a lot of students end up doing, a lot of architecture students end up going and doing that 2-year, then it comes out to $58,156. So now, you're a little over 200,000 and you've just finished school. And so this is the amount that is the kicker. I mean, that's the bulk of it. And again, that can fluctuate based on the school you go to, based on the programs you do, based on how many years and what, graduate versus non-graduate that you choose to do. But this is just an average. And this is why I was saying, like, if you just look at the numbers, it can be really overwhelming. But if you think about it, it's not like you're just writing a check for $200,000 and going and getting your degree. It's spread out over time, quite a few years, like 8 years, or 7. I said 8 earlier, but it's 7. 4 plus 3. Anyways, 7 years. It's spread out. There's things like scholarships. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do to offset that. So that really kind of cuts down that shock. But at the same time, I mean, I can't talk. I still have over $50,000 in student loan debt. So I'm still paying quite a lot of money every month for this degree, but it's still worth it. Okay, next we have the AXP program. So I was going to say this in the beginning and I totally forgot, but I'm just going to say it here. If you don't know what it takes to be a licensed architect, there's 3 requirements. You have to have the education, the experience, and then the exams. So there's 3 key components for getting your license. So that was the education component of it. Next is the experience. So for the architecture, becoming licensed architect, you have to go through the AXP, which is the experience hours. And those roughly take about 2 years. Now, that isn't experience you're paying for. It's one you're being paid for because you're working under a licensed architect, your normal job, and you're getting paid. But in order to track those hours and to keep certain affiliations, like with NCARB, there are fees that you have to have, membership fees, in order to track those and do all that stuff. So there is a one-time fee of $100 for NCARB. And I do want to say that NCARB and AIA make their fees accessible if you're a student, if you start off early as a student, or if you're right out of school. If you're not licensed yet, they do make these fairly affordable. So that's the one-time fee. And then there is also a yearly fee for that. If you're not licensed, you're just going through the program, it's $85. So let's say you are working, getting those experience hours for about 3 years at $85, it's $255. So again, it's not even like a check that you're writing right away. That's spread out throughout 3 years, but it all adds up. Okay, now say you are a potential, let's see, how do you describe it? Say you are a licensed candidate in California, so you want to be a licensed architect here in California. CAB, which is California Architects Board, has their own requirements. So you have to take another exam with CAB. Some other jurisdictions, you only have to take like a online thing, or you're pretty much already a licensed architect as soon as you pass the AREs. But in California, you have to go through that. So for the California Architects Board, the application for eligibility. So you actually have to submit this in order to be eligible for the AREs. This is them showing that you have completed all the requirements for California. And so that's a one-time fee of $100. Then you have the lovely AREs. Now the AREs, there's 6 of them, and currently they're $235. Now, there are 6 exams. There is a 50% chance of passing. So I love to, from the very beginning, be realistic and incorporate a couple fails in there just so you have that buffer. So let's just say we incorporate 2 failed exams in that at $235. For those 8 exams, 6, 7, 8, okay, I'm doing my math right. For those 8 exams, it's $1,880. Okay, that does not include any test prep material. And this is where it can get really expensive. Yeah, there is a ton of free material out there, but there's a lot of paid material too, and you are going to spend some money on paid material. You have to, really. So I actually didn't break down that into this chart just because you can spend anywhere from a couple hundred to a couple $1,000s on your test prep. So that is really subjective and can kind of be all over the map. I would say, yeah, you could probably spend about that. I probably spent a couple hundred. I don't think I spent over $1,000. I'm trying to remember now. I don't think I spent over $1,000. But maybe I did. I feel like there wasn't as many resources as there are now for the AREs. So a lot of the boring old textbooks and stuff is what I had. And so, yeah, I think that if I were taking it now, I definitely would be spending over $1,000, but I would probably be spending less in the exams because I would probably get through them faster with less fails. So it's kind of like a wash. You never know. All right, so great. You passed all your exams. Congratulations. Now it is time to take the California supplemental exam. This is just obviously if you're going to be a licensed architect in California. And this is another $100, which is lovely. Now, if you're like me and you fail the first time, then that's $200. But let's just say you passed the first time. It's not an easy test, but let's just say you passed the first time. So that's $100. Now, yay, you did it. This is so exciting. This is where was the last check where I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Another one? And I'll tell you the story too, but so you've passed everything. Now it's time to get your license. California Architects Board, initial license fee, which is due immediately after you pass the CSE. You essentially receive a printout at the center and then write a check and send it in, is $300. Now, this gives you your license number, but depending on what month you were born, that determines when your license expires. And based on when you it's like a whole thing. You'll find it out later. This isn't the time or place. But let's just say, okay, I passed my CSE in September. My birthday's in January. So in September, I had to pay the $300. It was the end of September. So essentially like October 1st. Paid $300, but my license was only good until January. And so I had to pay like the $300 I think it was way more than that. I had to pay that in January, only a couple months later. So that was kind of annoying, but whatever. It is what it is. Okay. You did it. You sent in your last check. The total breakdown from start of college through licensure, initial license, getting your license, $222,491. I mean, 222 is a lucky number, so that's pretty exciting. I mean, it's also spread out. I mean, the average length of time for this process from beginning school until you're licensed on average is 10 years. So that's spread throughout 10 years, which is about $22,000. Makes it a little less hard to swallow, but it is still a lot of money. It's a big investment. It's a time investment. It's a energy investment, and it is a money investment. So that is all to say, it doesn't stop there. Once you have your license, then you pay to maintain your license. There's continuing education, which there are a lot of really great free resources. So I take advantage of those when I can. And then you have to maintain your license every 2 years. You pay to keep it going. And then if you're a part of any other affiliations, you pay for that as well. So I am still I'm NCARB certified, which I think, I can't remember. I think it's like maybe $300 every year or maybe $185. I can't remember. I didn't have all of that stuff on here, so I can do that too. But and then AIA is so expensive. It's like I think that the last time I paid it was like $800 or something wild. Because once you're licensed, it's much more expensive. So if you don't take advantage of what AIA has to offer, it might not be worth it for you. But I am very involved with AIA and appreciate the community there, and I gain a lot from it. So I, find value, and I do run my own business. And so all of those, even the exams, when I was taking the exams, all of those were write-offs. All of those I could put towards the company because they're all going towards, licensing and all that good stuff. So there's ways to kind of play around with it if you have your own company. But yeah, so how do you feel about that? Again, I don't want to freak you out. I want you to still feel inspired to go down this path if this is what you want to do. Again, I remember having friends in high school tell me that they want to be doctors, and me being like, yeah, right. Like, I would ever want to spend that amount of time in school, spend that amount of time in work, and then spend that amount of money. Like, there's no way in hell I would do that. And then now come to realize that the path to architecture is really not that different. I had one of my best friends became a pediatrician, and we were almost on the exact same path. She finished her medical school when I finished graduate school. She started her residency. I started my exams. She became a licensed pediatrician when I became a licensed architect. So very fascinating that it all ended up kind of aligning with exactly what I never thought I would do. But I am happy I did it. And it's definitely a path that has been really exciting and valuable, and something that I have appreciated. So I do think it's worth it. I think that, if you break it down into smaller chunks, it makes it more digestible, and again, take advantage of things like scholarships and that sort of thing. Speaking of, I am going to be putting together a scholarship for this was not how I was going to announce it, but I'm going to talk about it here. If you're still with me, then you can hear about this. I want to have a scholarship for helping people who are going through the exam process in terms of getting their materials, because there's not really anything for that, and materials are so expensive these days. So I am going to be putting 10% of all the sales from my website, from Design, Create, Inspire, towards this scholarship so that I can start offering this. Now, I haven't put together yet the form that will be needed to be filled out in order to get that scholarship. So there will be much more information about that. I'll put together a whole video and announcement for that. But, I'm hoping to up sales here soon so that I can really start saving that money for that scholarship. I also am offering one seat in my coaching program for a scholarship. So I did this with we just finished our 6-week program this last week. And one of the students in there, I had given a scholarship to. And so that's something I'm going to carry through with each session. I'm always going to offer a scholarship to someone, because I don't want, especially the stuff I'm teaching about mindset and test anxiety and all that stuff, I don't want it to only be something that is accessible to people who can afford it. So hopefully this can help at least some people. Again, I'll put way more information on it later. I wasn't planning on really announcing it quite yet, but that is something that is exciting. And I think there are opportunities out there for scholarships or work opportunities. One thing I was going to say too is, like, certain jobs will pay for your exams. Some will even pay for your education. So if you don't have a lot of money and you want to go this route, there are opportunities. You have to get creative, learn how to hack the system like me. I did not get help financially through any of this. Everything essentially was out of pocket, or, still in debt. I did not get help through my exams. I don't want you to think that you're just sitting and listening to some rich person telling you about how, all the elite can become licensed architects. That's not the case. I think anyone can do it. And sometimes it just takes a little creativity or a little extra work, because you do have to hold a job. But I think it can all be beneficial. And personally, I think it's totally worth it. So I'd love to hear your experiences. If you are in school right now and your numbers are looking different than mine, or if you've gone through the process, or even if you went through the process like 10 years ago, what does that financially look like to you now? So the other last thing I'm going to finish this off on, and I keep saying this, but I am going to make another video on this as well, about the value of architects. But there is a really, really big disconnect. And this is something that kind of pains me. Like when I see those numbers, the $225,000, yeah, that's a bummer. But that's not what really bums me out. What bums me out is we go through all of this work and then we graduate from school and we are offered jobs at $22 an hour or $25 an hour. You know, we're offered jobs at prices that people who aren't going through all of this will get. As an architect who runs my own firm now, the value that clients, not every client, but the value that is placed on architects and the amount that is wanting to be spent on them, there's a huge disconnect. And I don't think people realize what we go through in order to get to this point. Because if you go to your doctor and you have to pay a big bill, you don't think twice that they make $250,000 or $500,000 a year. You don't think twice about it. But then you go to your architect who has had to put a ton of work, a ton of time, a ton of money. They're technically responsible for your health, your safety, making sure that your building stays intact and you don't get sick from living in it, and your happiness because you are spending 90% of your time inside this space. And they're creating this space for you, and yet they're expected to make under $100,000. I mean, it's just so mind-boggling to me, and there's such a big disconnect. I hear from other people I know who went and got a 4-year degree in something like random, and they're doing something random, or didn't even get a degree and they're doing something random and they're making, $150,000 or $200,000. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting how if I were to leave right now and go work for a big architecture firm, like I would have to fight my way probably to make $100,000, which is wild. And it makes me want to pay all the people that work with me, the most money possible, but then I can't because the fees don't come in like that. So I could literally go on such a tangent on this, and I'm not going to because I'll save it. But I just want to say that there is a big disconnect, and that is where I think the architecture industry falls really short. It's not necessarily in the cost to become a licensed architect and the time. I think that it all makes sense because we do have a very big responsibility to keep people safe and healthy. There's just not the compensation in the long run for us to even really pay our student loans. And maybe that's not always the case. There are some exceptions to the rule, but it is a big pain point in this industry. So again, I don't say that to deter you. What's amazing about architecture is you can take it, completely different routes and do a bunch of different things. And there are architects who kill it and do incredible. So there's hope, but I think it's more of a conversation that needs to be talked about. And it's more of an education for clients to understand the value that we bring as architects in order to start being able to charge more and then start being able to offer more to the emerging professionals. Okay, I'm leaving it at that because I don't want to go on a tangent. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if this totally overwhelmed you and you're giving up and quitting and running away, or if it's inspired you. Anything, let me know. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Hey, I do want to say too, if you're still with me, thank you. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, please do. It's very valuable to me. It's encouraging me to keep making these videos for you. If you're on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to podcasts, can you do me a huge favor and just rate and review the show? I don't have many ratings or reviews because I really do spend a lot of my time on podcasts, and I also don't really ask for that ever. But it does make a huge difference in terms of visibility of the program and also just the reputation of it. So if you wouldn't mind, take 2 seconds, just go give me a quick 5 stars and just a quick little note. I would love it and appreciate it. And I will make so many more of these incredible videos for you. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.